I want to show you how I conceptualize memory in relationship to story, okay? So it was a real, like when I landed on this thought, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so important. And I started to share it with all my students and clients. I started to realize that a lot of people out there who are sharing content or, in the mainstream, a lot of them feeling this pressure that they have to share at the moment of the lived experience. Like you're in the moment, people constantly have their phones on, and that's where we lose the sacredness, right? For a lot of people, it's just all collapsed into one. There's no time to have a lived experience and then for it to become memory and then for it to be shaped into story. And so I found so much power and so much dignity and so much more humanity in the pause in between each one. We have our lived experiences. Not all lived experiences become memory, which is kind of what Georgie was saying in her comment, right? We don't recall everything. The ones that we recall actually are attached to the things that we have chosen are more important, even if it's bad or good, okay? But not everything that's a lived experience, it's impossible. Like all these moments that we live can't all be memory. And I know that there's people out there who have a particularly more sensitive burden of recalling a lot, but even them, they don't recall 100% of their life. So the process from lived experience to memory is it is stored oftentimes not just in our mind, but throughout our body. And the more that we've experienced trauma, the more it's fragmented through our body. And then there's this more passive experience of being visited by memory, right? It just kind of sort of pops up in our day and that can feel more triggering or disempowering for us. Or there's, the experience of recalling certain memories, and that might feel a little bit more conscious, a little bit more choiceful. But a lot of folks don't engage in the deeper, more intentional work of taking memory and shaping them into story. And that's why I'm so excited each one of you are here, because when we take memory and then we sit with it and we examine it, and we make meaning out of it. We let the lessons reveal itself and we can craft messages of importance with it. And then finally shape it with structure. And this is more of like that creative license, beginning, middle, and end, that sensory detail. What's the experience I want to take my audience on to make it into a story? That process is infused with so many points of choice that it is deeply, deeply empowering just to go through the process of taking memory and shaping it in a story, because we are intimately connected with our agency in ways that we're not as connected to when we're just being visited by our memories as we go through our everyday life. Does that all make sense to you? Any questions with that? Okay, I'm seeing head nods. Awesome. Okay, so let me, this is just show you that memory is at the epicenter of this experience, right? We live our life, eventually we'll tell the stories of our life, but memory is at the epicenter, and that's why we want to spend our time with that today. So this is how I conceptualize making with memory, whether we're making stories, we're making lessons, or we're just making meaning out of our memories so that we can embody it for ourselves. So this is my process that I've really landed on. And that you'll be experiencing today and in the future modules of this course, okay? So the first step, which we're gonna practice today, is simply writing to recall. This gets to be super messy. This gets to feel like, there's not a beginning, middle, and end. There's no structure. We're just writing to gather some of that fuzzy, nebulous consciousness that's stored in our memory, okay? Then once we have it on paper and we can really look at it and get our hands on it, then we shape the Play-Doh. Now we're making meaning out of it. This is where we analyze. If analyze is a charged word for you, we are crystallizing, we're observing, we're noticing, we're just making sense of it all. And in that sense-making process, the next step, we're gonna land on a lesson. I believe that even the simplest, most mundane stories, if you look hard enough, there's a beautiful lesson of humanity in there. Something to share. And for me, when I tell stories, sometimes I land on new lessons, even on a story that I've told 100 times already. Okay, that's the beautiful thing, is that the lessons reveal themselves to us. Sometimes they reveal themselves to us in a particular time. We've become a certain person that is ready to receive the lesson, and so new lessons reveal themselves as we go. And then once you have this lesson, with the lesson at the center, we can shape really, really powerful stories to share with our people. So over here, this is how I think about the story ingredients that go in, pulling all that sensory detail out of our memory. What were the thoughts I had in that moment? What was I feeling? What were the dialogues, whether it's the internal dialogue or the external dialogues I was having with other people? So we're pulling all that sensory detail out of our memories, and then we're reflecting on it. What did it mean to me at the time? What does it mean to me now? Then we can invite our imagination in a little bit, okay? This is not to say that we're necessarily embellishing or making it up, but imagination is what connects us to possibility. So once we start to understand our past, we start to imagine and visualize and envision our future. And that's a really important part to add into our stories. Throughout all of that process, you're making choices. You're making choices about what to sit with. You're making choices about how you want to believe, how you want to feel about it. You're making choices with what you share, with what you don't. And this exercise of agency is how I believe that we liberate ourselves from anything that limits or oppresses us. And then finally, we come to that sovereign expression that is good for us and our people. And then this fifth step of the process, if we are those who routinely practice working with our memories and making stories and becoming sovereign storytellers, we embody the wisdom that our life has afforded to us. And this is really, really powerful for those of you who care so much about being those leaders with integrity, who can just walk into a room, who can start a relationship with somebody, and your presence is just the evidence that someone needs to believe in hope, to believe in change, to believe that we can do this, right? So this has been my process, and I just invite you to start playing with it.